the door. So we'll wait on that.
My kids might too.
Hey,
All right, I got this weird thing up here saying there's one, but I don't know what it is. Oh, there it is. Just okay. Never mind. So, Sam, do you know whether we?
All right, we're live.
All right, so I believe I don't need to read the governor's order anymore, so I'm not going to, but if anybody's listening after this, you can find this on www.southboroughtown.com if you are in YouTube. I'm going to call the meeting to order of the EDC on July 1st at 7:05 p.m. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. Julie, let me ask you, did they do roll call votes or anything on it?
We did roll call. We just did attendance.
So
So you
attendance.
went there and said you're here. Yeah.
All right, so I'm here, John Wood, Mr. Anderson, are you here?
I'm here.
Julie,
Julie Connolly.
Mr. Robbins,
present.
and we also have Claire Reynolds and Sam Stivers in the audience. So first, this call to order. Second thing on the agenda, discussion of the American Rescue Plan Act. So I don't know if you guys had a chance to take a look at that. The town is eligible for, I think it's $3 million over the next few years or over the next 2 years. I don't think they've looked at it at all. But we were just putting this on the agenda to see what we think we can suggest to the Board of Selectmen is. So with that, Marika, do I have that pretty much right in a nutshell?
Yeah, I think so. Well, first of all, I put it on the piece of paper, but the state or the federal government.
To replace revenue lost or reduced as a result of the pandemic, restoration of municipal services, fund COVID-19 related costs, provide support to aid households and businesses impacted by the crisis, invest in the economic recovery and renewal, and fund investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure.
Yeah.
So I know when I was speaking to Lisa the other day about something different, she said that they hadn't even really discussed it with the Board of Selectmen, and she said they'll probably have a bunch of meetings with advisory as well, so they don't really have a plan. But I know Framingham had a meeting of all the different boards and committees to try to figure out what their priorities and things were. So I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, even on the Framingham website, they have a survey that they put out, so people can kind of identify what they think are the most important pressing needs. So they've started that. I also know that a few regional organizations are trying to come up with some regional programs to assist local businesses, especially minority-owned businesses or businesses owned by women. So yeah, so I don't know. I think the EDC has a pretty clear. We've identified a number of projects which actually would fall into this. Especially the Route 9 infrastructure, sewage, downtown infrastructure investments. But maybe we can also think about more business assistance type of programs that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think this is a wonderful opportunity, and it's nice to hear about Framingham's asked for input from the public and from getting this word out to the businesses, the chambers of commerce, business organizations to get their input. And certainly the survey would be residents who will have some insight.
Am I muted or not? Some of my thoughts were, and I spoke to Marika briefly on this, like, it would be great if we could, there were some of the smaller businesses that weren't quite eligible for the micro enterprise grant, You know, it would be, I don't think it would be crazy to ask for like $25,000 or $50,000 be appropriated to help those out, but would need to figure out the criteria, who gets what and the whys. But things like that, or I know that there was a mortgage and rent assistance program that the town put out for homeowners and residents. It wouldn't be bad if we could figure something out for businesses as well. Like I know where they extended the eviction, the non-eviction rules. I know there's some businesses in town that are way behind on their rent payments because their landlords have reached out to me asking if there was any monies available to their tenants that they could try to recoup some of their losses. And I said, I don't believe so right now. So those are my kind of ideas. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on helping the businesses.
Well, I was thinking and wondering if there was a way to help both the businesses and some residents. As an example, Meals on Wheels for seniors and those people feeling food insecurity. Wouldn't it be great if we used some of that money to have contracts with Southborough restaurants so that they could actually make and provide meals via Meals on Wheels to those residents who are suffering from, loss of jobs? That money could be used to pay the restaurants to produce and make the food and keep them busy, but at the same time also help some residents who might be struggling a little bit given a loss of job or something like that. I was just wondering if that was something that we could think about.
I think it's a wonderful idea. I was on Meals on Wheels for a short period of time. They are so organized, it is mind-boggling. This is several years ago. They've got a system. They get food from all of these restaurants and grocery stores, and they make all these meals. And I was delivering wonderful dinners to people here in Southborough. So I think collaborating with them would be important, so we're not duplicating what we're trying to accomplish. The other thing
I was just thinking, if you just give money to a business that doesn't help get feet through the door, doesn't help on the marketing, doesn't provide the job benefits that come along with it. If you actually have them make the food, there's a reason for them to have an employee on staff to pay. And I was just thinking that, just something that possibly could work. It was just a thought.
it's great.
It's a great thought.
I like it. That's a really good idea, Rob. I mean, this is purely, we're only going to be advisory to the Board of Selectmen, but I think that's a great idea, Rob.
And I think there are other communities that have done similar things during the pandemic. So maybe we could get like a best practices thing, see if we can find an example, and then see if we can implement it here with the support of the select board.
What's interesting is if you go into Morrow's Cafe, or I've talked to Ted's Towing, they can't get workers because everybody appears, and like Dunkin' Donuts, they've lost people because these unemployment insurance has been extended. So it's really,
Well, I think it's more than that because that's coming to an end. And I mean, unemployment insurance is not the same as steady income. It's not, it's not really a living wage. But what I'm hearing also is that because we're still not issuing visas and we're not allowing work visas from a lot of other countries, that a lot of restaurants that rely on workers coming from other countries are really struggling. So I think that's at least as much of the problem. Maybe there are some people who are not going back to work because they're collecting the unemployment, but I don't know that that's the major factor. But either way, I agree. There's definitely a shortage of restaurant workers and some other industries too.
Regardless of whether it's due to unemployment or visas or even just fear of going back to work.
Yeah.
Uncertainty. So But you're right. I was down in Narragansett this weekend and there was a bunch of businesses closed due to inability to find workers. I was
Yeah,
shocked.
lots of restaurants are having to cut their hours or close early, or they can't staff. So it's a problem.
But it's a vicious circle, isn't it? In
Mhm.
order to get the employees, you have to pay them more. But once you pay them more, it cuts into your profits, and then you still have to pay your rent. And it's not nearly as busy as it was before. So all of a sudden, you're treading water. And I don't know how we can potentially fix that with this money, ARP funding money.
Hmm.
Well, I'm just gonna say again, the fact, Marika, you found out that Framingham brought together the departments to have a discussion on that, and they've got an open survey system. I think that would be helpful.
I
I
have
think
one
that-
more thing to add to if we're done with the small business piece of it. What the only thing I was thinking about from sort of a kind of goes with infrastructure, but we talked a lot about connectivity, and there's some sort of big connectivity projects that we've talked about that we might struggle to pay for, but maybe if there's money available through some of the, some of the programs that are out right now, thinking about things like generally sidewalks and, trail stuff, connecting trails, but also, like pedestrian bridge over Route 9, which I know that's one of Sam's things that he loves the idea of. And I think that would be huge as far as making the businesses along Route 9 more attractive and, more easy potentially to tenant and market, because, if you're on the westbound side of Route 9 and you want to go to Starbucks, you're kind of risking your life. But if there was a pedestrian bridge, then, you don't have to get in the car. You don't have to risk your life. You can just go to Starbucks. And that might encourage more businesses to be there if there's potential for people as they start going back to offices to be able to, traverse Route 9 and use services and amenities on the other side.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. The walkover bridge. I remember that was offered as an option when they were redoing Route 9 several years ago, and some people said they didn't have it. And I sure as heck, it'd be nice to have two walkover bridges, because when they put the middle barrier up on Route 9, they essentially cut the town off from everybody.
Totally. Yeah, if there was one like over by Oak Hill and one over by Breakneck, that'd be perfect.
Marika, the email that Carolyn Dykema sent out looking for ideas, is that different money than this?
Yeah, so that's a good question, because I thought she mentioned that there's different money available that would be separate from this.
Yeah, and there's a lot for infrastructure and the same kind of things.
Yes.
Because we only have $3 million, and that's not going to build a crossover bridge and fund all the programs that I think the selectmen and advisory are going to want to try to fill as well. So if there's other monies, like I think there was a lot of stuff on infrastructure and wastewater in that thing that in the email that Carolyn sent out, which to me is a perfect storm for Route 9, because we've got the potential one-stop grant money for that, and if we could tag along with that into anything of that other potential money that Carolyn was talking about for infrastructure, and that would be a great thing if there was more monies for like a crossover bridge or wastewater or anything like that with the new bill that they're trying to get through for infrastructures and all that.
Yeah.
The federal bill, because that's still on
I think
hold
that's separate from the 3 million.
Yeah, because the federal bill, they had a bipartisan one that they were in agreement on, but then they said they wouldn't do one without the other. So I don't know where that is right now. Does anybody else on that?
I don't know.
A couple trillion? Because that would be nice if we could somehow tie into the wastewater on Route 9 to either Framingham or Westboro, because we had somebody a life science building that was looking at something on Route 9 to lease, and they asked Marika when she thought that would be tying into somebody's wastewater, and we said 2075 is probably the earliest. So things like
Yeah.
that. I mean, we're losing potential decent companies coming in over that.
So I think we need to kind of think in kind of three different buckets, because I think for economic development, we have identified like the big infrastructure investments that would need to happen to attract, more businesses, which you mentioned is the sewage, and even the Route 9 as well as downtown. The zoning update, that's another important thing for, for businesses to be attracted to that area. Those are kind of bigger projects. What could we do like in terms of business assistance for local businesses? Are there certain programs? And I know we've spoken about financial incentives. That's another thing that's still on the table. And I think we're going to study that. Hopefully we'll be successful in the grant, application that we submitted. But maybe other, business programs that we could start with this, to help our businesses. I don't know if there are any ideas.
We had talked to the businesses years ago about cross marketing, try to help each other out, and it kind of stalled for some reason. But I still think that's a great program if we could help them cross market each other, like get dinner here, get a coupon for 50% off or whatever, $1 off at Cold Stone, or I just think we're missing opportunities on things like that as well.
I talking to Marika yesterday or the day before. The Framingham State puts together the Metro West Economic Research Center that does an economic summary of the strengths and weaknesses of our communities, the number of industries we have in each of our communities. Like I know Southborough has 10. How do we leverage, what are the things we need to do to ensure we sustain the diversity of our industry versus having one dominant company that comes and then goes and we're suffering. So when we speak of this, what's going to keep those that are here and what will attract them to enable them to prosper with sister kind of companies or like companies? It's like when I think of the fast food places, they've got some real critical criteria of where they go. Can people get in and get out? Are there other? I remember talking to the Baltus family, and when they heard about another restaurant going in town, they said, "Great! It just brings more people." You don't want to. So the more you have, the more people with those interests show up. So I just think that report is a place to recalibrate, or not recalibrate, but to summarize in our own mind, what are our strengths? How do we leverage it more? What are our weaknesses that can build a certain sector up on behalf of the town?
No, I agree. And I'm thinking about those things from a long-term perspective, and there are oftentimes I don't know the answers to them. And I'm going to use Tommaso and Hola as an example. They've got their tents up right now, and they're packed, and there are people going in there. Do they have to rent those tents? And if we're thinking about incentives and giving money to businesses, could we have a fund for restaurants to purchase outdoor patio equipment, umbrellas, and tents? Could that be something that we set up specifically to target that industry? There's the sushi place, there's Southborough Pizza, there's Moro's Market. That could be targeting that specific sector because someone's paying for those tents and covering the cost. If the restaurants themselves could do that, that would be something industry specific, perhaps, that could be useful.
Rob, those tents are actually ours. We got those with a grant.
So they're still ours and they get them for free?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We also have a 10 by 20 that's at New York Bagel. We have some electric heaters, and we also have gas heaters that are the picnic bench that you see outside of Southborough House of Pizza, as well as the planters, also
Yeah.
us from the grant.
So do we want to do more of that?
I've reached out to all, I mean, at the time when we applied for the Shared Street grant, I reached out to all the restaurants, and actually Ola and Tommaso are the only ones that really want a large tent.
Yeah.
So right now I don't have people who've been asking and, or indicated that they wanted anything. But so I mean, those are all, I think, great ideas. But the other thing is, the more difficult thing is, I feel, what about other companies outside of the very, obvious, or not obvious, but like that are not so, other kinds of businesses, other sectors that we can help, not restaurants and, businesses that we usually don't hear about or see. I mean, could we have, assistance with marketing, skills training? I don't know if, should we set up a business association again for small businesses in, town center and downtown or wherever, and kind of have oh, my battery's running low.
I like the idea of a business association.
Yeah, we used to have one, the Southborough Business Association, and it was doing pretty well. But it should also include the nonprofits, who are the largest employers in this town.
Claire wants to say something as well. I think she has an idea. John. And I need to find a battery for my computer.
To the chair, may I? Hello.
I can hear you, Claire. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
okay, thank you. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I was saying yes.
So-
Go ahead, Claire.
So here's something that's kind of interesting, and this actually comes from me talking to a business today. With the previous grants that were available, some of the businesses, and I have one in particular, was not able to take full advantage of the money that was available, because what it dealt with was funding all of the employees and keeping their pay going until this ended. What actually happened was they were able to get some money for a couple of their employees. This bill actually, the way I read it, looks to go back and take a look at money that businesses need to kind of fill in for the businesses that were lost. So here's the example. If you run a pet boarding facility, you know that people have not been traveling over the last year. Therefore, they have not been boarding their pets. So that's a huge part of their income that has been lost. One of the criteria that I see on the list is to have this amount identified and maybe work with them from that standpoint.
Yeah, it's an excellent example.
Thank you, Chris.
Oh, you're welcome, Claire.
I was saying relatively the same thing at the beginning, Claire, for the people that weren't quite eligible for the micro enterprise grant or didn't meet the criteria for different things. I agree. Have X amount of money set aside for that.
And I think that if we identify these businesses who, for no fault of their own, lost businesses, I mean, that would be a huge plus. So
yeah, I mean, we could start making a list. I mean, it's dog kennels, it's it's printing companies.
It could be anything.
You know, I know like Culinary Underground, they have like cooking classes. They had to shut down.
It could be like the Fayetteville AA or even the VFW because they weren't eligible to get they weren't eligible for any of the funds because they were fraternal order or like the Fayetteville AA. I know they were trying to get to part of the micro enterprise money, but they couldn't because it was a fraternal order. There was too many owners because it's a club and blah, 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 blah. But they were shut down for almost a year, you know, and not that they make a ton of money there, but you know, they still have to pay their taxes, their electric bill and all that, and insurance for their employee health insurance. So I know because they called me an awful lot. I know that, you know, some of the building owners, their tenants are defaulting, and with the eviction laws as they are now, that they can't evict them. So, I mean, there's the trickle down of this, it reaches the economic impact of COVID is still actually hitting right now with the inflation of different costs of different goods and everything else. I don't think we're truly going to know how bad this hits until after the first of the year, and who's going to need more assistance than anything. So I think that we should definitely allot some sort of, you know, 100,000 at least towards this. I mean, in a perfect world, again, we can only ask the selectmen to do it. We can't tell them to do anything.
John, I think you nailed it on the head in terms of the impact of this. What they don't talk about in the news, when you hear about cities burning down and tourism disappearing, that's a major economic hit, not only for the city, but across the country, because there's just talk about all the restaurants that were burned to the ground. All the supply chains for the restaurants just shuts down behind it. All of a sudden, they're not ordering X number of peaches, tomatoes. So all of these cities, we're all interconnected. This is one thing when we got into this, what is economic development, is that one of the professors at Northeastern demonstrated when they had the big hurricane that wiped out, what's the one down in the south that several years ago that flooded the whole city?
Hurricane Katrina?
Yeah. He said what he did is he showed what the economic impact of that disaster had. And he had little dots. All of a sudden, the economies of different segments of the country were being knocked down in terms of jobs growth. So we really haven't, we think those fires burning in the cities, oh, it's not us. It is affecting us enormously. We just don't see it.
Think about this too. All the, where people have been working from home, all the toll money lost to the state. You know, that's monies that go to the different municipalities that we may count on that may not be there next year. So I think economic stability for our businesses in town is of utmost importance right now to try to keep them in and keep them working and keeping the revenue stream coming in. So I know I'm preaching to the choir to all you guys.
No, you said it.
Like,
what's her name? Kathy Cook, who's chair of advisory, talking about and recommending the sales tax, the food tax. Well, guess what? And the comments being made, well, the food tax, there are a lot of people from other towns that are coming in here and they're paying it, not our residents. Well, guess what? That food tax disappeared during this past year. So it's incredible. It's kind of invisible. We don't see it.
so do we want to table this to the next meeting as well? Or do we have any more thoughts of how we want to write this up? Or potentially, I think this is a continued discussion. And I think once the selectmen and advisory committee start discussing this, I think we should absolutely have somebody, representative from the EDC at those meetings to try to chime in as well.
Yeah, I think being proactive about having all the committee chairs or everybody getting together to have this collective discussion. And I certainly think we ought to be key players in enabling that activity so we get the incredible input from a lot of smart residents we have and what the committees think should be priorities.
Agreed.
Did we lose Marika?
No, I'm just letting you all talk. I'm still here.
So that'd be my proposal, that Marika or John, and you working with Mark and the chairman of the BOS, that we have a collective meeting of the community, multiple sessions to pin down what the needs should be.
Marika, am I muted? No. Marika, what are your thoughts on that as well?
No, I think it's good. I think everyone needs to kind of keep thinking. But like I said, I think it's good to have some things on paper and eventually, send it off to the Board of Selectmen and say, these are some of the things that the EDC has thought about and would recommend you keep in mind. And I guess the more specific we can be, the better. But yeah, I think it would be like 3 different categories, being economic development, business assistance, and infrastructure investments. I think we have to look at those separately, and then we can propose some things.
The other thing-
Infrastructure is going to be vitally important, because I always come back to the CAS building. The CAS building has been empty for so long. It's on Route 9. It needs to be rehabbed, or something needs to happen to it. But from a transportation infrastructure perspective, it's very difficult to get to, and there are all sorts of other choices. It is an infrastructure issue there. In terms of long-term strategies and being as specific as possible, the one thing that we could develop, enhance, is a Southborough business website, separate from the town. Something that is controlled by the EDC or some other entity that is Southborough specific, that markets the town, can market the real estate, can market the other businesses, and can actually do something separate from the municipal government. That's short money, 5 or 10,000 out of that 3.1 million or whatever, that could be very useful and could support all of our businesses from a long-range strategic perspective.
So Rob, on the website, we actually did that when EDC first started. Within the first couple of years, that was one of our priorities. We hired a professional, we interviewed tons of people. We spent, I think, $5,000 or $6,000 on putting together a really great website. It was southboroughedc.com. And we had an EDC coordinator at the time who was very good. She was very technologically savvy. And she interviewed like different business owners in town. She put little video clips. We put pictures and news articles. It didn't get a lot of traffic. And we really tried to highlight different businesses. And also, with the problem with the website, it's only as good as the upkeep. So eventually it sort of just like fizzled out. And then we sort of collapsed it back under the town website. We had started it because we thought the town website was terrible. But it's really hard to keep that up on a long-term basis. So even though it's not a lot of money up front, it's an ongoing, and it would follow Marika, who's already super busy. Who knows where we're going to be in 2 or 3 or 4 years, who's going to be on the board or whatever. Like it's a lot more work. And I don't think we really got a return on investment for it necessarily, because there aren't that many people that we specifically looking for a Southborough business website. We put links to, I think we even had like a live link to the NSTAR, or not NSTAR, what's it called? Whatever the realty site is that lists vacancies. And like, we really tried to make it, we put a ton of time and thought into making it like usable and helpful from a business perspective. Yeah. And it was fine, but after a couple of years, it was just kind of, I don't know.
No, Julie, you've nailed it right on the head. Marketing is critical, and it requires full attention. We have to be relentless. Education, education, education. And it takes a while for anything like that to get hits. I mean, we have a tragedy in our community and others across the country. People are half asleep most of the time, and we don't even get great voting records, people showing up. So, but that should never deter us and should sustain us. We should find a mechanism to ensure that is sustained. I don't know,
Well-
Marijke, I think you've actually gotten phone calls, people asking about places to build or businesses to bring to town. I mean, people are starting to recognize there is a economic development office in most towns now, and we just got to keep telling our story.
I think we lost Marijke for a second there. But Julie, I see your point, and it's spot on. I was just thinking about ways in which there can be a long-term strategy so that we can help the businesses and market them. And so, this is where I think spitballing with the other groups might be useful. As an example, my wife and I order from Eros Gourmet all the time. You can pay through their website to order your food. There is probably a fee that our local businesses pay to have pay by web service. Maybe what we can do is say what we are going to offer to all of our businesses is 2 years of funds to pay for the online taking of orders. And that takes one thing not off their, I always feel insecure giving money to a business for operating expenses. But if you can say a fixed cost, like the website for every business, that makes them save a little bit of money and actually is focused on a strategy. Maybe that's something that we could consider. I don't know. I was just thinking that everyone is using the web right now.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you in concept, Rob. I think that we've got to find other ways to help support businesses. And yeah, I'm curious as to what other communities are doing, because I think your example is a good one. But yeah, it just, to me, the website is not the best use of that money.
Yeah, it does take an awful lot to do upkeep on a website.
Yeah, and the same thing we put together for several years, actually, a business directory. We did mailings. We tried to capture every small business. We had that available online. It took so much work. And then the next year it's different. So you got to go through it again. And we did it for several years, I think. I don't remember the last time we did it, but we did printed directories that we had at the townhouse and the library and the community center and or the senior center. And we did, it took so much work to identify all the DBAs and it was, and it was cool when we had it. But again, I don't know, maybe that helped. We tried to get it so, new residents could get it and things. I don't know if that helped people. It was sort of just like a mini Southborough business directory phone book. Oh, I need a plumber. Let me look up plumbers. And we had it sortable online in different ways. But again, nobody's picking up their phone and looking. If you want pizza near me, it's not going to pop up to the Southborough PDF directory. That's not even what you want, because that's going to be cumbersome. It's going to pull up Google Maps and link to your websites. So
Yes, Siri is not going to direct me to the Southborough website. Yeah, no.
Exactly.
It's the one thing about sustainability, though. I think if I were to encourage us to come forward with something that is sustainable long-term, as opposed to just saying, listen, we're going to cover some of your operating expenses now, good luck afterwards. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm hoping we can find something to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, no, I like that strategy better. Yeah, something to get them either. And maybe we just, I wonder if we could make I don't know how detailed or specific we need to be, but is there a way we could use some funds to say, to do a project oriented business thing? So for example, there's this nonprofit organization where teachers can say they want something for their classroom, and then you like do it, like you get money for it through some grants and like some fundraising. Could you say, like, you know, so a teacher might say, I want to teach my kids about photography, so I need X number of dollars to set up a photography lab and get 3 cameras and these tools. Like, could we do something like that where we invite businesses to say, what's the next step that you need? Do you need some beautification work outside? Do you need some plants? Do you need, you know, do you need business, your website revamped? Do you need your app? Do you need your app developed? Do you need, you know, what's a short-term project, not necessarily an ongoing payment, like to support a new employee, or do you need to hire a short-term contractor to cover somebody who's out on leave? Do you need a, you know, do you need a, like, let them come, if we can have a pool of money and let them come to us and apply for, or whoever, and apply for it, is that something that these funds could be used for?
I like
I
the
would think
idea of the
so.
specific project, because I can imagine a business saying, listen, we've been meaning to do a facade improvement, and it was in our plans, but we can't do it. And then COVID hit. So it could be the facade improvement. And if someone came forward and said, listen, I would like to redo my website, I'm sure there's a web developer, small business we could find in town.
There are
And wouldn't it
several.
be great if we could do that, marrying up and stuff like that? So I like the idea of something more project specific that would be useful. I think that's a good idea.
You know what I'd like to see? The town purchase that piece of property behind the pizza place. Because that can be used for wastewater someday. It can be used for parking. It can be used for everything. I mean, how much do
Yeah.
you ask for? I mean, you want something sustainable. There it is, that piece of land, because
No,
I've been
that's
saying
true.
that, I've been saying this since I've been on the EDC. That piece of property is so
Priceless,
important
yeah.
for so many. It could be,
Yeah.
whether 40 years, like right now, where Paul Pazinski said none of the septics are really failing downtown. You don't need a wastewater treatment plant there right now, but you know what? We have very little of parking. It could be a park. It could be so many things. I just think that would be a great thing to get. In the perfect world, if I could only see one thing come out of this $3 million, that would be it for me, because that
Yeah.
solves so many problems for downtown. And that can be and so many people could enjoy that. That could be part of the connectivity. You could park there. If we ever had bike trails or walking trails, you could park there to go downtown and have a meal. You could, you know, if someday we need an underground sewage treatment plant underneath the parking lot, there you go. It could be just so many things.
I think awesome. Yes.
You know, I mean,
that-
that would be
that's-
my perfect wish list. It's $250,000. It's less than 10%, but that would solve so many problems.
Is that how much it would cost to purchase?
I think
Yeah.
I think they were asking like 232 or 252 is what the whoever owns it. I forget whether it's National Grid or but whatever. But yeah, it's like it's around $250,000 for that piece of property. But I think the selectmen agreed that it would have been a good idea to get, but I think it was the purchase price that they weren't happy with, which is fine, because you know what, they're not going to sell it to anybody. They haven't sold it in this amount of time. It's landlocked and there's potentially needs to be capped, you know, but it would be a great parking lot for downtown. Or a great park for downtown, or a great wastewater treatment plant
Well,
40
I
years down the road.
I just think it also would show, if the town could or would purchase it, it would sort of just be a show of, yes, we're serious about downtown. And, you know, it's sort of, for anybody or anything that's going to happen down there, it's almost critical to have that control of that piece. So whether it's, you know, the town buys it and then leases it to a developer or sells it to a developer down the road, or, you know, it's used for more sort of public, more of a public purpose for, you know, either parking or wastewater management. You know, I think it shows a proactive position from the town that, you know, I think is, you know, not been there. So I think there's tons of good reasons to get it. And I think, you know, God forbid some other private person, $250,000 is not very much, you know.
I don't think
estate
it's developable.
Right, in and of
because it doesn't
itself,
have the
right.
frontage or any of that
However,
stuff.
probably not, but if you were to buy it again and buy the pizza place building, then you combine it in this.
Yeah,
Like,
Well,
again,
I think
unlikely, but
it's
it's
a
got some
long
value.
term, it's a long term strategy, and it's infrastructure as well. Parking is infrastructure, wastewater is infrastructure, a park to attract people to the downtown is infrastructure. It sounds like that's a great idea for the use of that funds. And it's not nearly as expensive as I thought it would be.
and it's a lot cheaper than the crossover bridge of Route 9.
Absolutely.
So, I mean,
I want both.
Yeah.
yeah,
So
I
that-
know, me too.
So we're going to include that in part of our suggestion.
I'd like to.
Yeah. I really like the idea of this like little project-based money to businesses. If they can show if they can show a specific business need that maybe, I don't know if it has to be pandemic related or not, but it is somehow, you know, related to bringing back Southborough, bringing back their business post-COVID, and, you know, can tie it to a very specific projects at a very specific budget, you know, submit backup information to show that this is exactly what it's to be used for. You know, if we have a pool of money and people apply for, I mean, I don't know, cap the amount or something, or don't, I don't know. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I really
Let me
like
a-
that. I don't know if that's the intent of it, but I love that idea. That's like a really direct way we can help small businesses and help revitalize.
How much would you need for that? How much would you ask for? Because
I don't know.
if you're gonna be specific on who's
Right.
going to get it, you're gonna need to be specific on how much you ask for.
Right.
Do you?
Exactly. And you know, if we have, even if we have a $200,000 pool or $100,000 pool, like somebody could have easily $100,000 project, or somebody could
Yeah.
have a $5,000 project that's for, you know, doing their website, you know, so, you know, I think we would need to think more, and I'd love some feedback from other boards and committees. And again, this is a great reason why a survey would be awesome, because I'd love to know what residents or businesses thought about that too. But, you know, I think the concept is really cool.
Yeah, and I think that, Marika, that fits in your economic development budget that you had identified, correct?
Yes, yeah.
And that helps small businesses. It's in the economic development bucket. We also hit upon the infrastructure budget, which is potentially the land in the downtown, you know, and if we had twice as much money thinking about the walkways over Route 9. But I think there are going to be other people who want money as part of it. So maybe the downtown purchase of the land is kind of the focus of the infrastructure. You had a third bucket as well?
Well, no, this is just my own kind of, I was trying to see like different projects. So infrastructure, yeah, business assistance, and just economic development, like short term. So short term, long term, and then, yeah, investments.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, one thing, did we mention, I stepped away for a minute, coming in and concluding and funding the completion of our zoning, redoing of our zoning.
Yeah, it's all in the list, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that thematically, I really believe that what we do impacts all the other committees' kind of missions. A healthy economy means more people employed, more taxes collected. That enhances each of the committees outside of just us, so that we're demonstrating, I mean, we're helping planning by offering to work with them to redo all the zoning and not just one, and then whether it's SHOPSI and helping them, because what they do is indicative of how our local economy is another piece of our economic success. So when we go out there, we're here to bring other pieces of our committees and their particular missions to strengthen their ability to function and do things well.
And the one thing I would also say, and there should be a small section of that money for some studies and consultants as well. Because there are other ideas that we can use to help the town maintain a good fiscal standing. So that the residents' tax rates don't go up. That might not necessarily be true economic development strategies in terms of job creation, and things that we might want to explore that come up as climate change and renewable energy becomes that much more important. So I think maybe we should think about advocating for some money set aside for consultants to help us through that.
Agreed.
Yeah, we always seem to find ways or in our committee, we always seem to find ways to use consulting money. I mean, we're not experts at everything. We all have most of us have other full-time jobs. So yeah, the consulting money is, something that we've relied on. And I think whatever projects we're going to need to go forward with are going to require that. So
Yeah, I've got some ideas, and it might not necessarily take consultant money. We might have some people willing to do the work for free with a possibility of us getting as the town getting a pretty good return on investment. So I just want to make sure that we have some money out there in case we need to work through a strategy or work in an industry that we don't know a lot about.
Yep.
I think that's another reason we need to collaborate with more boards and committees as well, because there's a lot of smart people with a lot of talents on the committees that are out there.
Yep.
So I'm glad we've been trying to communicate with the EDC newsletter and reaching out to the different boards and committees to try to get people in, because we don't know everything, but I'm sure there's people in this town that can answer put us on the right track. And if they can't, we can always go after the consultants as well. So anyway.
Well, I can't think of the book at the moment, but there's a book that I read a few years ago, and it showed how communities came together to collaborate to address certain issues. So we ought to be thinking about not just Southborough, but if we tied in with Westborough, Marlborough on a particular issue, there's more leverage, more strength, and it has a mutual benefit across the greater Metro West. That'll give us a bigger return. I mean, Marlborough, I marvel, and I know, Rob, you've got wonderful examples where you are, but I can never get over how Marlborough, whose downtown was failing, their independent business association cut a deal with the town, or the town cut a deal with the business association that they would collect, I think it's a 2% tax on all the people who come into the hotels throughout the year. And that money goes directly to economic development, and with specific goals to expand our economic well-being. It's a classic example of a government working with a nonprofit business association, collecting taxes that will advance economic development and more.
All right. So do we have anything more to discuss on this Recovery Act? Or do we want to table it till our next meeting a little bit more, think more about it and go from there? Or does anybody have any action items they want to do with this right now? I think we have a great start.
I think it's an exciting moment, and I think it'll help bring the community together in a greater way.
All right. So no action items right now to deal with
Now,
until we find out what they're going to be, what the selectmen and advisories, and probably capital, and a lot of other people are going to probably meet a lot on this, and everybody's pretty soon going to have hands out and ideas on where it should go. So I think it's smart that we're proactive and thinking about this now, though. All right. Marika, do you have any thoughts or things you want to bring up on that before I switch over to the EDC newsletter?
No, I think it was a great first discussion. I will, add these things to my working document, and then as we speak about this more, we can come up with some kind of a proposal or some ideas that we can share with other boards, committees.
Yeah, I was
Sounds
just
good.
wondering if Sam Stivers, if he's listening, have you got any insight as to what you understand this new arrival of funds and the implication it might have, and what your thoughts are about it? Thank you, Sam.
Hey, John, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah, we can hear you.
you're on now, Sam. Thank you.
It's my understanding, Chris, that Chelsea and Lisa are working on that. So I don't have anything. I don't want to get in the way of that. So I think there's a great opportunity, and there's a lot of projects I think that you folks and many others are going to be interested in proposing. The trick is to how to sort the priorities and figure out how to use the funds. And I think that's going to be an important process to clarify for everybody. So I think that's in process, and I don't have anything else to add at this point.
Sam, have you heard about any other potential income streams or funds coming in for any other projects like this from federal and or state level?
Yeah, there are three bills in this pipeline. One is the American Rescue Plan that has been signed, and the one that we're talking about here. There's the infrastructure bill that is in Congress now that they keep arguing about the size of. And it sounds like something's going to happen there, but it's not clear exactly what or when. And then there's an American Families Act that the president has proposed for about $2 billion. That's behind that one. And that's even farther up the pipeline. So it's not clear what's going to happen with that. But again, a lot of interest in investment at the federal level. And I think we just need to be alert to try to understand as best we can what we can do with that when it becomes law. And it's not particularly helpful, I think, to speculate too much, because this infrastructure bill, it looks like it's going to be finalized soon, started out at $2 trillion, much more broad than the current one they're talking about. So, it's hard to predict what's going to happen by the time the Congress gets through with this stuff. So again, money's coming, I think, which is exciting, but a challenge to figure out how to take advantage of it appropriately.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Anything else on the ARP, American Rescue Plan Act? ARPA? No? All right. Moving on. Next thing on the agenda, the June EDC newsletter. Everybody have a chance to take a look at it?
Yeah, it's great.
I get, do we
I
want to
think
take?
Micah sends it out to everybody.
She does. So we usually vote on it, on whether, on the content or any changes or anything we want to make, or before she sends it out. I thought it was great. I thought it was a really good job, to the point. Anybody else have any comments or questions on it, or want to make a motion to accept it, to send out as is?
I so move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? I'm gonna do it by roll call anyway, just because it's Zoom and I'm used to doing that. So I'm gonna call it as I see it. Rob?
Yes.
Julie?
Yeah.
Chris?
Yes.
And myself, John Wood, aye. So it passes unanimously. All right, administrative business. Moving on, vote on authorization signatures for fiscal 21 and 22. What's that, Marika?
So I guess I asked Carla and Heidi. So currently they don't have any authorization forms in the office, but I guess they're starting this. Basically, they've sent this to all the department heads to make sure. I mean, I guess they want to formalize that who's able to sign for financial like approvals. So they said probably the EDC coordinator, and then as alternative, because I said I'm the only one, I don't have any other people unless the committee. But I guess it would be Mark Purple who could sign things off when I'm not there or available, or if it concerns payroll or whatever. So we just need to formally vote on the fact that I can sign for certain contracts.
Is it up? I don't know if I'm muted. Am I muted? No. Is it up to a certain amount, Marika? Do you know, or anything like that?
No, I mean it's basically what I've been doing. Like when I submit payables, so I mean I would still be subject to vote by the committee, right?
Yep.
So we have our EDC budget, and then the committee would decide if we want to spend stuff on something, and then I would be able to sign it off when I submit the payable.
And that still goes through the town accountant and all that,
Yes.
that process and review. So I have no
Yes.
problem with that.
So
So do I have a motion to authorize Marika for the authorization signatures for the EDC? And if she's not available, Mark Purple.
So moved.
All right, and then Chris, are you gonna take your hand up? How about you?
Second.
Seconded by Chris. All right, any discussion? Okay, as I see it, Rob,
Yes.
Julie.
Yep.
And Chris.
Yes.
And myself, John Wood, yes. Passes unanimously. All right, any unfinished business? I see that the blue building on Route 9 now has a sign out for it. It's called Rad Exotics. I don't know when they're opening. I thought they were going to have a soft opening on Memorial Day, but they have not opened yet. I actually got a couple of calls from different people in town saying, why did the EDC allow that building to be blue? And then I explained that's not in our purview to change colors of buildings. So
We should have design standards.
I actually pointed that out. I said, well, we're trying to get design guidelines for the planning board, and that's where that would be. That's not us. But other than that, I don't have.
I find it just interesting. I just think of all the people who come in with Portuguese. I'm not saying this person is Portuguese, but you go south of the border here and people paint their houses with stripes, with chartreuse colors. And I don't know. And I know the building hasn't been finished, the face. So it's just interesting. We have different cultures. I don't know if it's the Portuguese effect, but it's kind of interesting.
I'm not Portuguese. I'm as Irish as they come. And my father had a house that color when I was little. It's like,
What?
Well, most communities do have, they do have, or at least different areas of their towns or cities where they, where especially in commercial areas where they have guidelines for building colors or for materials, or like look at downtown Nantucket. It has to be that that Cape style.
Cape Cod look.
Yeah, with
all
got
of
a-
Key West is the same thing.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
can
So,
only paint your houses in X amount of colors, and it has to be this type of
Yeah.
a pastel and blah,
And I
blah,
don't
blah.
necessarily want to do that for people's residential houses, but
Yeah.
if we want to go for a look downtown or in one of the business districts or on Route 9, that's something to think about.
Okay, so any more unfinished business? New business, but we didn't have a coordinator's report in this one. We'll have that meeting on the 15th. Marika's been reaching out to all the other boards and committees to say that, we've reached an agreement with the Board of Selectmen and came up with a final draft of the bylaw, and to try to have us go in and meet with them to explain where we are and how we got there and all of that. So I got the only one I've seen so far that's replied that said sometime in August is the Historical Commission. I haven't seen anybody else get back to Marika yet with when they're going to put us on their agendas or any of that. But
maybe advisory. Did advisory get back?
I know they want to have us on. She hasn't given me a date yet.
Okay, all right.
But I did talk to the chair of advisory, and
Yeah.
she definitely wants us on. I just don't know when.
John,
Yeah.
I just can't tell you enough how important what you're doing is making a significant impact on how we proceed. Getting their support, advisory, and all the other committees that you're going to visit with is crucial to our success going to the next town meeting. So thank you, John. I know you're under a lot of pressure and it's a lot of time, but you have a gifted way of representing us. So thank you.
Well, you said something wrong when you said with all the committees that you're going to visit. I'm going to change the "you're" to "we're going to visit."
Okay.
No, I don't. It's, you've been preaching that since I've known you. The collaborative effort's the best way to do anything, to get anything done in town. The more people you can get on board and try to get more committees and boards looking at the same thing and working together, the better off we're going to be. I think once people start realizing that it's not a lot of these things like Route 9 downtown or even the different grants, they're not EDC projects, they're Southborough projects, they're town projects, they're for everybody.
Well said.
So, once we can get people to realize that, then I think we're in a better place. But thank you. So, any public comment? The only public we have left is Claire or Sam. And since Claire can't raise her hand, she can text. Do you have anything else to say, Claire? But I think you might actually be able to speak, both of you. So feel free to speak freely.
I'm good, but thank you very much.
You are welcome. Mr. Cyrus, anything?
Nothing, thanks.
Okay. All right. Then our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, July 15th at 7:30 p.m. But subject to change, as you see. And I guess that's it. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I do.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Any discussion on that? Okay. I'm going to do roll call just because I'm used to it. Rob?
yes.
Julie?
Yep.
Chris?
Yes.
And myself, we are adjourned. Thank you guys very, very much. I appreciate
Happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July.
Yes.
Enjoy the long weekends.
Take care, everybody.
Excellent. Thanks.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
thank you.